Welcome to Money Talks. Over the years, I've learned how important using logic and intuition is in making any financial decision. Before I bought any property, I always examined all the information that was available. For example, which areas were due for regeneration, what kinds of services were going to be introduced, transportation, housing, schools, shopping facilities. So the first step is to arm yourself with information. For the logic part of it, do all your figures, plot a course of action that looks reasonable for you, how much it will take to go into a property, how long you'd have to hold on to it. This is the logic portion, and then let your intuition take over. Your intuition can be a very powerful factor. Never underestimate it. I'd heard of a commercial property that was going up for sale at £275,000. I spoke to a lot of people in the business and they all thought it was way overpriced. But I'd just completed a purchase on some penthouses that had cost a little over £1 million. So I was trying to put things into perspective both logically and intuitively. And I thought to myself, I've just spent over £1 million on some flats. If I buy this commercial property, I won't have to lease an office. That could be my office. And there was an apartment upstairs that could be rented out. So I decided to go against conventional wisdom and I made an offer on the property and got them to reduce it to £267,000, which still everybody thought was much too high. And for the next 3 years, I had an office that was rent-free. I collected rent from the tenants upstairs and I sold it for almost twice what I had originally paid for it. Had I listened to all the naysayers and not purchased that property, I would have had to continue paying a high price for office space somewhere else, and I would not have had a property I could have sold later on. So the points to remember: always get your information first. Assess your needs, look at the financing that's available to you, do the maths, and then use your intuition. So let's say that now you've found your property. You've carried out all the necessary research. It meets your needs and your intuition is telling you that it's a good buy. The next step is the appraisal of the property you're looking to purchase. A mortgage is secured by the value of a property. An appraisal gives the lender assurance that the house has enough value to cover your mortgage request. An independent appraiser or surveyor, not a realtor, usually does this. This can be a minefield. I experienced this time after time in the UK, where one lender would have a particularly negative valuer who would always downvalue the price of the property. So this meant that my client was declined their mortgage and often lost out on a great property. Others would have much more favourable valuers who would listen to the real estate agents, do their homework about the different properties in the area and would not downvalue the property. I can remember one valuer coming out to see a property I was purchasing for £275,000. And he said it wasn't worth more than £220,000. Well, there was no way the lender was going to agree to the loan. Then I applied to a different lender and another valuer came out. And he valued that same property at £275,000, the asking price. I had to learn the hard way on my own property purchases. But at least as a mortgage broker, I was able to use this invaluable information to obtain mortgages more easily for my clients and also save them needless monies on application fees and appraisals. Again, this is another reason to use a good mortgage broker who often has inside knowledge of the more difficult valuers in your area. I can remember the estate agents calling me and saying, "Oh no, not that Mr. Evans again, the appraiser from Bank of Scotland. There's no way he's going to value up the property for our purchaser." Or there was the lovely Mr. Armstrong who was so friendly and always valued the properties up at their purchase price. I can remember another time when an appraiser stood at the bottom of the house and he said that the roof needed to be replaced without even going up there to see. And this was all the more amazing because it was not a pitched roof that you could at least see part of by looking up. It was an inverted roof, which is very common in London, so there was no way that he would have seen 1 single inch of it. And it turned out he was right. So he must have been using his intuition. A few years ago, I was all set to buy 3 apartments in a new block that was going to be built. It was known as an off-plan purchase, where you put down a 5, 10 or 20% deposit, and 2 years or so later, when the property been built, you get your financing and you complete on the purchase. Very often, if you chose carefully, you could buy a property off plan for say £100,000, and by the time it was built, it was worth £150,000. Of course, this was a very risky investment, as you didn't know what the market was going to be like a year or two hence. But potentially there was a lot of money to be made in a rising market. Several of my clients had agreed to invest in it as well, and it looked like a wonderful opportunity. The apartments were in an up-and-coming location. They were near to schools and local amenities, and what's more, when I did all my calculations, they looked like a real bargain. So I'd done all the logical part of the decision-making process. But inside of me, something just didn't feel right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt uneasy about the whole deal. Without knowing the reason, I trusted my intuition, and in the very last minute, I pulled out. I advised all my clients to pull out too. This did have severe repercussions on my reputation, as I was well known in the area, and this was the first time I'd ever backed out of a deal in the last moment. For weeks I did receive threatening phone calls and letters, but I rode out the storm, because several months later I found out that the builders of that apartment block had taken hundreds of thousands of pounds in deposits from people, and they'd skipped the country. So had I not listened to my intuition, my clients and I would have lost a vast amount of money. Stay tuned, I'll be back shortly.